Good evening. Today is Monday, April 12th. We had another up day in the markets. S&P 500 traded mostly in a 15-18 point range and made yet another new high. Russell 2000 underperformed again and was down around 10 points, and Nasdaq was basically unchanged. Bonds also didn't move much. And Bitcoin finally was able to cross the 60,000 mark a few times over the weekend, and right now is trading around 60,000 after briefly touching 61 recently. And speaking of Bitcoin, it's interesting that MicroStrategy, the company that has one of the largest companies to hold Bitcoin, just announced that they will pay their board members in Bitcoin. But the devil, of course, is in the details. While they're paying them in Bitcoin, it will be based on US dollars. And so they just merely convert whatever they owe them in US dollars in Bitcoin and will pay them in Bitcoin, which is, in my mind, kind of defeats the purpose. If you really want to switch to Bitcoin, you have to decouple from US dollars. Otherwise, you're really just using it as a placeholder for 5 minutes. I really don't have much to say today because it's just yet another up day, kind of boring yet slowly making new highs. And the only interesting news for the day, which I found is very interesting, France is moving to ban short distance domestic flights when there is an ability to get there by train. So if there is a train alternative that gets you there under 2.5 hours, you can no longer fly there, because to save on the emissions, to help the global warming and all that stuff. So I wonder if other countries will follow the suit, and it will be a lot harder to fly now in Europe between the cities, and you'll have to take the train. And what would that make America follow its lead? Maybe we'll have to take a train across the country soon instead of flying. I don't know. Victor, what do you make of today's days?
Well, I guess we're following Amtrak Joe now. That's the shot across the bow, and I guess France will open the door, and then the infrastructure bill of 2 trillion will have yet another door opening for it, another reason to spend $80 billion for Amtrak. The cost per mile and per passenger is going to be excessive. But let's get back to the market. 9 up days in a row. Happened 4 times since 2011. Next day it's up 3 out of 4 times. The expectation is slightly negative, even though it's up 3 out of 4 times. The rises are very small, the order of 3, 4, 5 points, and then there was one decline of down 10 points. So we're certainly in uncharted territory, and I've changed my my views now. I'd thought that it would be bouncing back below 4,100, and then it would go up. But now I see that on where it's past 2 round numbers in a row. If you look at the next move to the round number, if you look at the expectation, if it goes to 4,200 or 4,100, the expectation is quite positive. So we're in a new paradigm. We're going up. Also on the bullish front, we have the frog being thrown into hot water. That's when the market wants to get you out of, get the shorts out of a position, they'll throw you into hot water. They'll have a big disruptive day, up 30, up 40, that will get everybody out. But when it just goes up 7, 8, 9, 10 points, that's like putting the frog in lukewarm water and gradually heating it up. So that in general, according to Gestalt psychology, that is bullish. The frog will not jump out. The shorts will stay short. So that's another thing that's bullish.
What about Nikkei? Is that concern? Nikkei was down today, failed again.
No, that's not. That's a concern. That's a beneficent, wonderful thing, because in order for the market to go down, for the market to sort of reach its goal, have its climax, it will require the Nikkei to be above 30,000. And the Nikkei is only 29,000. Nikkei will have to go up 2% from here to get above 30,000. And when it does that, the stock should be shooting for 4,200. Everything was woke today. Everything was extremely progressive. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, the only news that they highlighted today was a murder here. A policeman was shot in Maryland, and then a policeman mistakenly pulled out his tried to pull out his taser, and instead he shot a man of color dead. That will be very good for the anti-whites, very good for the people of colors matter, and there'll be more protests in Oregon and Minneapolis. There'll be cause that it will be stopped, and there'll be some looting, and Biden will be able to say something about how the police are out of control, and will be sympathetic to the idea that has the world in its grip, that the purpose of life is to create equality, to bring the poor and the people who are in the lower middle class, have to bring them up to the middle. One good thing for you in particular is that the former president continues to make a monkey out of himself, and he used some foul language to talk about McConnell, but yet there are a lot of Republicans who think that McConnell is rather sagacious. Anyway, DeSantis is almost even odds to be the presidential candidate in 2024. He's picked up 4 percentage points versus Trump, and now he's about 17% to be the Republican candidate, and Trump is only 20%. So it's still 4-1 against the former president being. Let's just hope that he doesn't hurt the Republican chances by saying something bad about Nikki Haley and DeSantis. Hopefully you'll have some advisors who will keep them quiet. The one good thing is if we can get by to November 2022, it's very likely that the Republicans will take the House, and then all these boondoggles, all this buying of votes, the earmarks, the pro-union infrastructure, and the lockdowns, the panics, the fear mongering, the billions for trains, and they say that only 5% of the infrastructure is for bridges, roads, or trains, and transportation. And now the progressives have changed the linguistics, the semantics have changed. So everything is infrastructure now. The infrastructure is money for health workers, and money for education.
Right.
It's anywhere you spend your money, it's infrastructure. What's very good is that the bond vigilantes are quiet. There's what they call the Latka-Verhulst equations in ecology that describe the cyclical behavior of lynx and hares in Canada that they've been, and as long as the stocks are going up, if the bonds go down, it's sort of like their prey is getting stronger. There's not as much. It's harder to find predators for the stocks, but now bonds provide some negative feedback for the stocks usually. But no, the bonds are where they were 3-4 weeks ago. They refuse to go down. So I think that's another bullish thing for stocks. There was some nice information on the Huang loss of $5 billion, and there was some discussions about on the Thursday, April 1st, all the brokers that had exposure to Huang had a meeting to describe what to do, and there was a motion that they'd all hold. At that time, he probably still had they still had equity in their accounts. So there was discussion about having an agreement not to have everybody to stand still. But when you have a conspiracy like that, or sort of like the OPEC, there's always one signatories to the conspiracy, to the collusion, who has a tendency, he has an incentive to break it. And apparently that's what happened. They weren't able to reach an agreement, but this happened with long-term capital also. Hedge funds that were vulnerable and that were near the margin call, they went to a few big people like my old friend, asked him for some help, but idea is that he immediately phoned to buy some puts and to short the market. That's the rumor. In any case, the point is that I claim that the reason the market's gone up 9 days in a row from April 2nd, on April 2nd, it was 40.27, so it's gone up 3%. Anyways, six more up days in a row. The reason is because this is the kind of energy, the kind of food that the top traders get. They forced Huang to sell Viacom and Credit Suisse, and they sold it to they sold it to big hedge funds and to obviously to big holders who were able to take care of themselves. And anyway, they got the extra energy of being forced to buy a representative sample of high flyers at 50% flyers on zone and 50% for Credit Suisse. And the top brokers made money. Goldman and J.P. Morgan. So I think that's that's what the market loves. The market is whenever they force a week long out, and you wouldn't think that with the market worth $12-15 trillion that a $5 billion gift is important, but no, it is. It helps. It helps all the top traders. It gives them some more energy. And then I noticed that Chance Gardner was probably didn't have his marching orders. He spoke on Friday as if the economy was very good. It is very good. They're talking about one of the highest increases in GNP ever. They're talking about GNP being up 9% in the next few quarters, and he figures that he's done enough to help the progressives by saying all along that they had to lock down, and that we were going to have that we were in the midst of a crisis and there's still a lot of unemployment. But this time he said that the economy was going to be good, but then immediately Pataki said that if you really look at exactly what he was saying, he's saying that the economy could be very weak and that we need the infrastructure bill. And there's always, I had a nice quote from Matt Ridley's fantastic book, which everybody should read, The Rational Optimist, because he approaches it from the standpoint of a scientist, of a biologist, as well as he sort of extends his biological knowledge to the economic sphere, and he quotes a lot of the old standbys, Julian Simon and Norberg and Milton Friedman, but he talks about all the technology and all the his basic idea is that everything, all the technology is cumulative, and it's communicated immediately. As he puts it, the ideas have sex now, and he talks about all the fact that amazing facts that the average take home, the average income of the in 1810 was not any higher than 1620. But then there was a burst of technology, and he understands all the technology. He talks about the steam engines. He talks about all the the textile machines. He talks about the motors and Faraday, and points out that there's a boom in technology in conjunction with the wonderful British Navy that kept peace for 100 years, from 1800 to 1900, and that's continuing. He shouts out to Bill Gates and Sergey Brin, and Elon Musk wasn't in the picture then, but talks about all the fangs, and how they're doing this kind of thing that Newcomer and Faraday and Hargreave and Whitney and all the innovators of technology. He compares the Google, when the Facebook wasn't around then, but he would compare Google and Facebook founders to the technology wizards of 1800s, Edison and Bell, and he's very optimistic. And he has one quote that I think is very apt. It's something that, a quote from John Stuart Mill from about 1860, says, "I have observed that it's not the man who hopes when others despair, but the man who despairs when others hope, who is admired by a large class of persons and is called a sage." Well, that's a reason that the stock market is always has this aura of pessimism around it, because when a man says something negative, he's thought of as a sage. I call that as part of the English disease. They always feel that there's something negative, no matter how much stocks go up in a year, and that's where we are now. We're quite the weather gauge is positive, even after nine up days in a row. If the market happens to zigzag below 4,100, it will go right back up. Anyway, the next 4,200 and the S&P, and 30,000 in the Nikkei. Here we come. Thank you. Goodbye.